Well, here we are. We're live and a bit of a different look today. It's Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Tuesday night, the 12th of May,
It's the
20,
12th of May already. We're
the
almost halfway
12th
through
of
the month.
May.
Unbelievable.
Yes, it's rolling right along. And hey, 2 weeks from yesterday is Memorial Day. The first long summer
This
weekend.
is an important message.
It's amazing. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yes, don't
My,
feedback me here.
no, we just jumped. I mean, the YouTube just kicked in, so the volume was up. You know, I'm looking at ourselves right now, and I got to tell you something. You look good.
Well,
You look
thank you.
you look at least 5 years younger.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you waited until now to point that out to me. Thank you so much.
But we are
Uh,
using a different type of
right, we're
mode.
on Zoom. You know, I finally figured out. I had an issue with trying to figure out how to run the Zoom video through my software, and now I figured that out. So we've got that problem solved. Also, want to apologize for last night because uh, as soon as we started talking about the thunderstorms, I don't know. We went over to do the usual Briller the Briller Jeopardy question, which was the Johnny Quest question about positive and negative charges with thunderstorm bolts. And I took this massive internet hit. I don't know where it came from. I took this massive internet hit. My computer just started. It looked like a pinball machine on this end, and apparently everything froze up. Just as Joe was about to tell his story regarding Jerry Stiller, who passed away day before yesterday.
What I like
You
about this new system,
what's
is
that?
that when I say something or when you say something, the outline of the box lights up.
Oh, very good. I didn't know. Oh, yeah, very good. Yeah, I'm seeing that. So this
So
is all. This is all the new technology that everybody's going to be when this is all over with and most people are working from home. This is what they're going to be doing.
right,
So
right.
anyway, you want to tell your Jerry Stiller story now, or you want to wait till later?
Um, I could wait till later. Let's get right into
Uh,
the weather
okay,
aspect.
so we've got subject matter tonight. We've got another cold night with frost and freezes in the Northeast down into the northern Mid-Atlantic states. We have what could be a very large severe weather outbreak tomorrow in the southern and central plains that we could talk about. We could talk about the warm up that's coming into the east on Friday, or we could talk about the subtropical storm that the National Hurricane Center is actually putting out tropical weather outlooks
Right,
on this.
right.
They started that, I believe, today. And so, which one do you want to do first? So I have everything set up.
I don't have a coin or a kern
Well, pick
to
something.
flip here. We could talk about the cold weather tonight. Interestingly, the cold weather tonight. We got 2 nights of cold weather now. We're going to have tonight and tomorrow night. Tonight, I think it's going to be more a matter of cold air advection, bringing in the cold air, and then tomorrow night, a perfect radiational cooling night with high pressure and control. The winds will still be a little bit busy overnight tonight, but they're going to flatten out to dead calm tomorrow night, and temperatures are expected to drop both nights big time. There's some spots north of the 84 corridor, Joe. I think by daybreak tomorrow morning, some of the rural valley sections will probably be down close to, or maybe even just a tad below 30. And that's pretty darn cold when you consider that we're in the middle part of May still.
Yeah, not a shocker. The temperatures this evening, right now, as of 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern time, didn't get out of the 50s today. And by the way, I don't know how windy it was by you, but it was howling here this afternoon. It was
Oh
every
yeah,
bit of 25 to 35 in gusts. I think I might have even seen a few gusts up close to 40 for a short time.
my wife has one of these little wind. I guess you call them wind jammers. Looks like a pinwheel or something that
Right.
she puts in the garden or whatever. And one of these, the it kept flying off, and I had to bring it into the house physically. She had to put a little bit of masking tape in the middle to keep it from flying off. But that gives you an idea of just how. I mean, the wind was whipping this afternoon, and with temperatures here, we didn't get above 60. We got to about 58, 59. It felt in the few times I was outside today like it was in the upper 40s to around 50. And tomorrow, bright sunshine, maybe not quite as windy. What did I go for wind tomorrow? I still went 5 to 15 sustained out of the west. and then it just drops off completely to nothing tomorrow night.
Right. Right now, it's well off the highs of the day, and everybody on the surface map with northwest wind barbs, wind some gusts still running in the 15 to 25 to even a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust this evening in parts of South Jersey. Temperatures mid 40s to low 50s. So I think that certainly is chilly enough to set the stage for what you suggest as far as temperatures are concerned. And once again, the Weather Service with widespread freeze warnings and frost advisories that are up from Maine down all the way into northern Virginia and West Virginia, back through Ohio and into and around the Great Lakes into Michigan and Wisconsin. So we'll get through the tonight, and then the warmer urban centers will stay above freezing. We'll get through tomorrow night. The general trend here is for temperatures to start rising, and that's where we're headed as far as the end of the week goes. Now we do have, Joe. I noticed on the satellite loop tonight there's a little upper low that's swinging across from I guess east of Toronto, moving through into Quebec province and headed east. And there's some high clouds with that. That might hold the temperatures up just a little bit, but as you said, there's going to be cold air advecting because this shortwave is going to be going by. So
Right.
eventually we will clear out. The clouds might help to slow the temperature drop down, but once it clears, we'll see those temperatures fall off. And meanwhile, by the way, seeing the beginnings, there's not a whole lot of severe weather going on this evening in the southern plains, but we're already seeing the beginnings of what's going to set up as a rather large severe weather event tomorrow from Texas through Oklahoma on up into Kansas and then reaching up into parts of Missouri and Iowa. So that's all part of the weather system that's coming eastward for Friday, but it's got some time before it gets here.
Right. And it looks like on Friday, starting off the day, we're going to be in a warm wedge of, relatively speaking, warm wedge of air. The warm front, assuming that everything moves along, the warm front will be to our north. The cold front will be approaching from the west. And it could very well be. I didn't see anything on the day four outlook for possible severe weather as far north as our location, but it would not be surprising if we had maybe a marginal risk of severe weather here later in the day on Friday and Friday evening as that cold front approaches from the north and west. Nothing to compare with what we're talking about down over the Southland over the next couple of days.
Right.
But again, a little bit of meteorological pyrotechnics on tap for maybe to finish out this week, along with very warm temperature, much warmer temperatures than we've seen in a while.
They said predictability is low from SPC standpoint. We do have dry air over the northern lakes, so that's going to be here tomorrow. I think we'll have a pretty decent day. We also have a nice weather across much of the southeast down into Florida. So at least for now, conditions are okay there. And we've got a system coming into the northwest. If you look on the upper left, you can actually see the rotation there that's off the Pacific Northwest coast. That's a pretty sizable system that is moving inland. We noticed yesterday that WPC was going for big rains there and seeing some of that rain on the radar. Here's tonight's action as far as severe weather is concerned. We've got some. Let me freshen this up just a little bit. And, well, I guess I shouldn't have done that because now all my radio echoes have disappeared. So it looks like they have a problem. Let me see if I can bring up another radar shot. Well, that was a nice surprise. Hang
We're
on.
learning. You're learning with the with Zoom.
Well,
Wasn't there a TV show for kids called Zoom?
yes, there was. Um, full. Let's see if this is the one. Well, even this one. For some reason the way they they lost their echoes. So how about we see if we can get it through SPCs. Well, there they are. You can actually see it from SPC's map here. The two small areas of marginal risk in South Texas, for Austin and San Antonio, sitting inside that marginal risk, and Midland, Odessa, and Lubbock are sitting in the other one. And then you've got this small area of marginal risk in northeastern Wyoming. But take a look at tomorrow, Joe. We've got enhanced risk, and SBC is actually already headlining this for tomorrow. So you know they're paying attention here. Enhanced risk up in parts of western Oklahoma and northwest Texas. Big area of slight risk that runs all the way up into southern Nebraska. And the marginal risk, which fingers its way into southern Iowa and northwestern Illinois. So we're probably going to have a busy night tomorrow night with regards to thunderstorms. But the east is quiet. We're nice and dry from Maine to Florida, except for extreme southern Florida. There's no risk here as far as showers and storms are concerned.
And now we're also watching off of the southeast coast, as we alluded to at the very beginning, the beginnings possibly of a subtropical system, which the National Hurricane Center is going to investigate. Uh,
Yes, and I
as
got it all set up for all the maps. We'll get to that in a second. Severe risk on Thursday into Friday. The slight risk moves into Missouri and western Illinois. The general thunderstorm risk pushes into eastern Pennsylvania for by Friday morning. And let's see if they updated their 4 to 8. Nope, predictability still too low. That just means that there's too many variables for the SPC to come to any sort of conclusion.
right.
If they thought that there was going to be a minimal amount of severe weather, they would say probability is too low.
But
But
Joe, all you have to do is just extrapolate the general area of thunderstorm coverage, which takes us to 12Z Friday, see where it is, and you just know that the Northeast is going to be in line for at least some general thunderstorm activity. And the question is whether or not the folks over at SPC think that there might be some spots that might have a marginal risk, or maybe even stretching it out, a slight risk, although right now, um, they're not willing to stick their head out much beyond 3 days. But I'm sure we're going to see some areas get some rumbles of thunder here before the end of the day on Friday.
well, here's the upper air for the next couple of days, and of course we've got this. We have this trough moving through the eastern part of the United States this evening. That's bringing through the cloud cover that we're seeing in some areas, and of course this also brings down colder air after it goes by. This actually is moving through rather quickly because by uh, 2 a.m. that upper low is already in Maine, and we're going to get that cold advection after midnight and into tomorrow morning. But this trough, once it pulls out, you start to see that the height lines start to rise. And there's a little bit of a ridge here that's building into the east. We're now into Thursday morning. The trough is pulling out to the east, and we're seeing a much more relaxed flow across the U.S. And again, the most important thing out of this is the fact that we're cutting off the upper flow from Canada. If you take a look at it from the standpoint of the GFS, I'm gonna go to the wide U.S. view so we can watch the progression of all of this and just go back to Saturday when we had the big upper low and of course the big cold and snow for Saturday with that trough. That pulled out, but there was a second arm coming down. That's what's coming right in here. That shortwave trough you see there, that's swinging through here. That moved through here yesterday, and then you have yet another upper low right in here. This is what is coming through today and moving out to the east. That is the last one because it's right after that the trough, that whole upper low and trough pull out, and then you start to see this little bit of a ridge that builds here into the eastern part of the U.S. for the end of the week, and that's why we are, confident of a warm up. And you see the flow now here is across the United States from west to east. Canada's kind of cut off, or at least that cold flow is cut off. But we do have this upper low and shortwave that is moving eastward from the plains and across the Great Lakes. That's going to bring a cold front through here and a chance for showers and storms on Friday. And then after that, Joe, I think the weekend's gotten a little muddled here. You've got, of course, we're going to be watching off the southeast coast. Okay, you have another system in the northern plains that moves into Minnesota on Saturday. I'm thinking Saturday will probably be the better of the two weekend days from what I've been seeing. Uh,
Yeah, I would agree. I would
okay,
agree. My only question about Saturday is how much sunshine we might or might not be able to garner. This cold front coming through Friday night doesn't quite doesn't seem to have the oomph to push all the way well to our south. It looks
no,
like
it doesn't.
it's going to subside somewhere near South Jersey or whatever. So the question is, how much lingering cloud cover, how much lingering moisture may be around on Saturday? I think Saturday will be a dry day, but I think also that the question is, will we get a lot of sunshine or will we stay muddled with a lot of kind of a more cloud than sun type of day? And then Sunday, the next disturbance moves in, and that may throw a few showers our way later Sunday and Sunday night. But I agree with you. Saturday looks like of the two weekend days for outdoor activities. For all of us who are romping around in the outdoors now for a
Right.
few moments,
Well, the problem for Saturday is the fact that the base of the west. This is usually what we deal with in more as you get closer to the summertime. The southern edge of the westerly winds of the upper atmosphere are only down to about southern New Jersey, so that next cold front is going to stall out.
right?
I drew it a little bit too far south, perhaps. It's going to stall out, and I think you're going to have to deal with the fact that it's going to back up as a warm front Saturday night and Sunday. We
Correct.
are going to have a bit of an onshore flow to deal with later in the day, Saturday and Saturday night, with an east and a southeast wind. So I think if we're going to have some sun on Saturday, I would probably guess it would be more early on in the day, and then more clouds later in the day, and then now you've got this model, and I don't know how real this is. It wants to take this next shortwave into the Great Lakes and then just kind of dive it down into Virginia. And if you notice, this is what represents whatever subtropical system does or doesn't develop. But the GFS on this run decides to pick it up and just sort of rotate it around the upper low that it's coming down from the Great Lakes. I don't know if I necessarily buy this idea yet. Okay, it's an interesting notion given the way the whole upper air is set up. I the odds would favor that anything that does form out there winds up getting kicked out to the northeast and never really gets involved in all of this. But you got to wonder when you start seeing this sort of nonsense with cutoff lows. You have to. I mean, I wouldn't completely rule out the GFS's idea here.
How many cutoff lows have we've had over the last 3 or 4 weeks in this part of the country? It seems like cutoff city, so to
Which,
speak.
well, and that's a spring with a blocking pattern is going to do that to you. Now, here's the issue for Friday. Uh, your first shortwave goes by. I think there probably will be that they're going to probably do some kind of marginal risk here for severe weather. The other thing, Joe, is that the way the high goes out, we have a south wind here on Thursday, which to me says that at least the coastal areas may actually have a tough time getting out of the 60s.
Right.
It maybe gets to 70 or better inland, but you're going to have to go a decent, like up by you, you'll probably get there, and western New Jersey westward, but everybody else may have a little bit of a struggle. Then here's your warm front that sets up Thursday night. All the showers were set up in upstate New York and New England. So I don't think the warm front for this particular case for Friday is our issue. We have a west wind or west southwest wind here. That's going to keep the marine layer out of the picture. You've got this front coming down from the west northwest. So I think these thunderstorms may actually hold together as they move on through.
It could be. By the way, the you're right about. I'd say southerly winds on Thursday, and here in the Lower Hudson Valley, I could see. I'm a little bit more conservative than what you would go with. I think Poughkeepsie, for example, which is just a stone's throw to my north, 65 or 66. But New York City proper may have a tough time getting above 60 with that southerly wind
Yeah,
on.
it depends. It depends on how much of a south wind, how much sun are we going to have. If there's a fair amount of sun, you can see the temperatures actually run up and then come back once the wind kicks in. So
Right.
that's a dilemma for tomorrow and Thursday. We're trying to figure that out. Now your front stalls out, and as you said, it doesn't really get very far. Southern New Jersey, Delmarva Peninsula, and then at the same time, this is Saturday afternoon. You've already got a low developing northeast of the Bahamas here, and it does at least have the look that this would be some sort of subtropical system. Now, of course, your warm front is backing up. Here's your next frontal system that's coming down. Your warm front is beginning to back up Saturday night and Sunday. But now, because of how the GFS handles this whole thing swinging down from the Great Lakes, it almost implies that we'll probably have developing showers Sunday, and then it just kind of gets that whole system offshore involved and the upper features involved, and you've got rain around Monday and even into Tuesday, pulling back westward. I don't know. I'm not a. I don't know how real this is. I think that's the European basically just keeps the two systems separate. The northern stream, we get a cold front. The subtropical low goes out. That to me makes the most sense at this
It does.
point.
It does, right? We'll see how this all pans out in the next 2 or 3 days as we get closer to the event, and how that offshore system down in the Bahamas eventually works its way or tries to work its way northward. But right now, I'm pretty, I'm better than 50% certain that, as we just noted a few moments ago, of the 2 weekend days, regardless of the fact that it may be rather cloudy on Saturday, that likely is going to be the better day of the two. It'll be the milder day of the two because, as you point out, ahead of that approaching warm front on Sunday, an onshore flow may keep temperatures from reaching much above the upper and middle 60s. So 70s maybe on Saturday, sit back to the 60s with the onshore flow and the approaching front on Sunday, and maybe a chance of wet weather here again later on Sunday and the Sunday night.
Now, one thing I did notice that now that it's got this cutoff, which by the way, Joe, when you look at the upper air, this cutoff moves off the Virginia Delaware coastline and basically sits there all week long. Okay? All
Yep,
week.
yep,
And the thing is that if that's true, then uh, we're going to be cheated out of a big warm up that was being telegraphed
of
on
course,
the earlier run. If you
of
go if
course.
you go back to the earlier run here, the cutoff is way out. It's way offshore. Okay, and again, I would deem this more likely than anything else. And then you got a big ridge that builds in the eastern part of the United States all the way up into Maine. This was the old run. This would be later next week and going into Memorial Day weekend. We would have probably at least I would say a couple of days where temperatures would be in the 80s, if this is correct. But now you look at this 18Z run, the recent run, and again, I would look at this with a big grain of salt at the moment. It's cutting that off and it just sits there offshore, which it wouldn't be able to get very warm here until maybe the end of next week because you'd be dealing with an onshore flow for days.
Well, Joe,
I want the first solution. I don't want this solution.
the Climate Prediction Center, for the first time in a good long time now, actually has the eastern United States, actually more than the eastern central states, in above normal territory temperature wise, and even better yet, near normal precipitation on the 6 to 10 day outlook for our neck of the woods. And by the 8 to 14 day outlook, we're in the throes of below normal precip, above normal temperatures. So what the guys and gals over at the Climate Prediction Center are trying to hint at as we approach the Memorial Day weekend is a trend toward warmer and drier conditions. And who knows, maybe we may have some lovely late spring or early summertime weather as we move into the upcoming Memorial Day holiday weekend.
All right. So let's hope that this in between run is out of its mind when it comes to that that cutoff low. Although you know what, if there's any year that we wind up seeing a low cutting off with a subtropical storm and an onshore flow where it rains here for 4 or 5 days in a row, this would be it.
Well,
Okay.
you know what I've said always about my thoughts on the intermediate, the 6Z
Right.
and 18Z frogs. I never really, I mean, I look at them sometimes in an interesting situation. I'll see whether or not they continue on the same trend as the primary 0 and 12Z runs, but I never really had too much use for them. I'll bet you when we get to tonight's 0Z run that we'll probably be seeing that cutoff being uncut off,
All
so to
right.
speak.
Well, or at least if it's there, let it be further out.
Right.
WPC's rainfall, by the way, for the next 7 days, pretty much like it had yesterday. Big rains from from Kansas into western Pennsylvania. Some areas getting 3, 4, 5 inches. Also down over much of the eastern half of Texas, and of course you could also see the big amounts being generated down in the Bahamas, and that's with the developing low and the possible subtropical system, and the heavy rains that are being indicated off the Pacific Northwest coast. Now, as far as the Hurricane Center is concerned, they did put this in their outlook today. The 50% chance of tropical storm formation in the next 5 days, zero chance in the next 48 hours, and there'll be a special tropical weather outlook on the system that comes out at 9 o'clock tonight. They're just probably just going to essentially say the same thing because all the real development with this doesn't happen until we get to the end of the week. But just want to show you on the close up here on the North Atlantic view what's going on because you got this big high, folks, that moves off the Carolina coast Wednesday night and Thursday and just kind of sits out there. You've got this long fetch of easterly, east southeast isobars coming from the tropics and running across the Bahamas and Cuba. You see how the model generates quite a bit of rain here. You got a little bit of a ripple in there, a little bit of an inverted trough, and all of a sudden, as the high pulls out and pressures start falling off the southeast coast, you get a low that forms rather quickly over the Bahamas, and then just kind of meanders its way northeastward or northeastward. Eventually, it does get kicked out, and of course, as I mentioned, today's run, the late afternoon run, wraps this all up with the with what's coming down over the Great Lakes, but uh, the model differences here are the fact that on the prior run, when we look at the upper air, excuse me, Joe, I just got a little bit of a tickle in my throat.
Yeah.
It's the wine I'm drinking. It's not a very good wine. Uh, but if you look at the old run, the 12Z run, the subtropical system, La, Monsieur le Rabbit, La, okay, put in La oven. So now we have the second system that is up in the Great Lakes. And of course, that's bringing a cold front with showers and storms. They really just kind of stay separate. You see how the Joe on the old run, the GFS drops the upper low southeast just like the 18Z did. The difference is that it kicks the subtropical system, gets kicked out to the northeast rather than getting absorbed. So
Right.
that's the old run, and the new run says no, no. We get rid of that. So the new run. Here's your difference here. The upper low and your what represents your subtropical low. The upper low comes down, and instead of kicking it, it just kind of captures it and absorbs it. And then eventually the whole upper low gets kicked out to the east. The problem is it takes all week to do that. Now, by the way, Ryan Ford had asked me, to talk about the La Nina, and I brought up the I have the global analysis sea surface temperature anomalies up, Mr. Rayo, and I will tell you that from what the La Nina is going to is when you start to see below average ocean water temperatures across the equatorial Pacific. And that's what you're starting to see now, this ever growing area of below normal temperatures from off the coast of South America, not close to the coast, but probably a good 300 miles east of the coast of South America there. But you do have an expanding area of below average temperatures running across the equatorial Pacific. So it does appear as if the La Nina is getting underway. And the reason why that's important is because in La Nina patterns, they tend to create wind conditions in the upper atmosphere on the Atlantic side where The upper air winds are light, are relatively light. No less wind shear issues. Wind shear keeps tropical storms from developing. Lack of wind shear gives it a more favorable environment for tropical systems. So that would certainly indicate that we have the idea that we will have a above normal activity this tropical
It,
storm season makes a whole lot of sense.
and that's what Captain Kirk of the company that we had him on about a month ago, of the company weather360.com, weathertrends360.com. He has been saying, thanks to the developing La Nina, that places in the Gulf and also right here in the mid Atlantic and Northeast may be at risk for enhanced hurricane or tropical activity as we get into the latter part of the upcoming summer season. So we'll see whether or not that all pans out. But you're right. El Nino tends to kill tropical activity, or at least suppresses it. La Ninas, on the other hand, tend to enhance the possibility for tropical cyclone activity in our neck of the woods. So again, we'll see. It'll make for a very interesting late summer and maybe early fall around here.
Okay, so I got the chat board up, noticing everybody talking, which is always a good thing. I It's running kind of fast right now. I'm not seeing any questions or general comments. They low pressure off the Carolina coast is something to watch, and I'm with Mr. Chaffee and Danilo. It's a low for now. Yeah, I mean, I think given the ocean water temperatures off the southeast coast of the United States, it would be it would be supportive for a subtropical system. I don't know if it'll be warm enough to support a true tropical system, but hey, again, this would be 4 out of the last 5 Mays we've had a named storm, so this would make it 5 out of 6 if it does wind up happening. Well, we'll see. We'll see. And again, I would favor it staying, not doing what the GFS did, where it's kind of swallowed it up and gets absorbed by the upper low, because I don't think any of us wants it to be rainy here for 3 or 4 days.
My wife
Um,
just my wife just mentioned to me, somebody on the chat board wanted to know what wind shear is. I don't see that question. I'm going back here, uh, but I don't see exactly where that question
well,
popped up.
wind shear is winds increasing with height.
Right.
Wind speeds increasing with height. Just think of the
I'm just
fact
thinking
that
of
it.
the person who asked it. That's
Oh,
that's
okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing it either. Um, if you're still on, because now I'm at the bottom of the chat here, you can type in that you asked the wind shear question, but just think of a thunderstorm, billowing clouds building up with height, and you suddenly run into an environment where you have these strong winds. It's kind of like if you took shaving cream and you piled shaving cream on your hand, and then you take a fan and turn the fan on, and that shaving cream would just get blown off to one side. The higher up you go, the part near your hand might stay intact, but the higher up you go, that shaving cream gets blown off. Okay, that that is literally what it does. Is it rips the thunderstorms apart. So when a tropical storm is trying to develop, and it's trying to develop a core of solid thunderstorm activity, and there's strong wind shear, those thunderstorms never get an opportunity to get going. They start to form, and then those strong upper air winds just rip those storms apart, and you see it on the satellite. You'll see the clouds literally getting blown away, usually to the northeast, with strong westerly shear.
somebody is mentioning about the fact that some, oh, it's Daniello Evangelista. Some predictions are calling for over 20 storms. Do you agree with that?
That's at the top end of the extreme range. Look, I don't know what the top number is going to be. Look, if the I can go with the idea of being above average. What the top number is, I don't know. And remember, it's not just the La Nina that's in play here. There's a lot of other factors that have to come into play, that'll determine ultimately whether we're just a little bit above normal, or maybe we're a lot above normal.
Right.
But I don't have the long range skill set.
Where
T-
where we haven't heard from Dr. Gray from Colorado State University. They used to make predictions in advance of the tropical storm season in terms of how
yeah,
many.
is I hate to bring this I ask this question, but I don't know why in the back of my mind is he still with us?
I just
I'm not
realized.
trying to be funny here. I for
Oh
some
no, I'm wondering myself now whether or not he had passed away or whatever, or whether or not others at
if you if you haven't and you're watching, we're not trying to rush that for you. Just so we're clear. I don't know why it's in the back of my mind, or if I'm confusing you with if we're confusing him with someone else. I've got the European up because, excuse me, Mark G asked about the European. By the way, the maps, as always, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, which is a great go-to site, especially
Joe.
for hurricane season. Yes.
Joe, I'm sorry to say, your thoughts were correct.
Oh, I,
William M. Gray, William Bill Madison Mason Gray.
yes.
He passed away in April of 2016.
I
That's
thought
4 years
so.
ago.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
news travels slow in your parts up in the Hudson Valley.
yeah, emeritus professor of atmospheric science at Colorado State University. In the late 1970s, he noticed a trend of low hurricane activity in the North Atlantic and moved on to be a predictor of upcoming activity in future months. So yeah, he did pass away 4 years ago. Sorry, did not realize,
Well,
had the
Colorado State does they still put out a forecast.
right,
They just
right,
don't, he's not involved anymore, clearly.
right.
So here's the European, by the way, with respect to the GFS. And the upper trough is much different in how it handles the system that moves across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast on Sunday. It just basically rides it along. It drops it and makes a cutoff, but it does it east of Bermuda, way out. Okay, and of course the subtropical system, which is off the Florida coast here, well off the Florida coast here Monday morning, just gets kicked out to the east northeast. So that's the main difference. The 18Z run may just be doing one of these, like you said, Joe. Maybe just went out to lunch in a manner of speaking, and tonight it'll come back and just go back to what the old run did. But it the European uh, would support the notion that it is going to be it's not going to be a problem for us once we get this weather system out of here on Monday, and then weather conditions improve after that, and we can have a nice big warm up at the end
Yeah,
of next week. Now,
Daniela also adds Colorado State is calling for 16 storms, 8 hurricanes, 4 of them major hurricanes. That was their prediction as of a bit more than a month ago, early April. And they, of course, will update, I'm sure, as we move through the late spring and summer season.
um,
16 storms, that's pretty good.
what's that?
16
16.
tropical system, eight hurricanes, and 4 of the 8, half of them are projected to be in the major category.
James Volpe, thank you for hitting super chat tonight. Really, Joe and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, yes. Jabulia Muber was asking me. He said, "If I got my wine from the homeless guy on 25A." No, I did not. No, I did not.
I the
I
only
went to the liquor store and I got a bottle of wine that um, they said was okay, and it was not expensive, and it's all right. It's an odd blend. It's from Chile, and it's an odd blend. It's like 85% Cabernet Sauvignon, and or as I call it, Cabernet Sauvignon, and 15% Merlot blended together. I don't care for it. I'm not really crazy about it, but I'll drink it as long as it burns. I'm okay with it.
the only wine I favored. I don't drink all that much, if really at all, alcohol. But I did find a sweet wine many years ago, a Matus Rosé. Do they still make Matus Rosé?
Yeah, I think they do.
Uh, my wife is big into Manischewitz blackberry. wine. I get it for her every Christmas. She loves that blackberry wine. In fact, sometimes I'll see a half a bottle of wine on the table or on the counter, and I'll say, "Oh, we having a little schluck tonight."
Half a jug,
Half a
a
jug.
granny jug with the X's on it.
You, you're talking about like what they have it on Barney Google and Snuffy Smith and Hoot and Holler, right?
Right, or on the Beverly Hillbillies.
What Louise used to give to Snuffy.
That's right, yes.
What Otis used to drink on the Andy Griffith Show, right?
Oh, speaking of the Andy Griffith show, of course, this is Mayberry,
Right.
May, the month of Mayberry. But you know what else it is, Joe? It's Barney Fife week, which means the Fife is right.
I know that
I saw that promo today, and I nearly fell out of my chair. It was
Meat
like,
Beef does great with promos. I know that they're running. See, up until now, the only time they ran anything on it about the Andy Griffith Show was the black and white version. They get to season number 6, and that was when it became colorized. But this month, we're being regaled with Mayberry month, and I think one of the episodes they're running this week is the legend. In fact, I think it's even tonight. I think at 8 o'clock, the legend of Barney Fife.
yes, because it's the Fife is right.
Right.
Um, yeah, like I said, I saw that promo. I just
Have you
lost
ever
it.
heard? Have you ever heard the Mayberry rap?
No.
They
You know what? And I didn't write it down. God, I was going to ask you, and I didn't write it down. I was reading about this upstairs. Apparently, Mayberry has quite the media that they got their own TV station there nearby. And I was going to ask you if you knew what the call letters were of the Mayberry TV station.
I don't know. I always thought that they would watch TV out of Mount Pilot, but I didn't know that they had one just outside of Mayberry. Did you know
Apparently they
that,
did.
Barney?
Apparently they did.
Apparently they did.
So let's. I
Never
gotta.
heard, but you never heard the Mayberry rap. I'll have to
Uh,
I'll have to
no,
send
I've never heard the Mayberry rap.
I'll have to send I'll send you the link because it's a funny thing. My name's Sheriff Andy. Folks say I'm dandy. I'm the sheriff
Oh
got a
no,
gun.
no,
Now let
no,
me see this
no,
and B and Opie, he's my son.
no! Make it stop.
Andy,
All
dinner's on the table. Come home.
right, so here's Briller Jeopardy for tonight. It was
All right,
actually for last night, but because my computer exploded, we couldn't
all right.
do it. So name the 4 state capitals that are named after presidents.
The 4 state capitals that are named after presidents.
Mm-hmm.
Named after presidents? Really?
Right.
All right. Well,
Hansel. Hansel.
it it's
Hansel.
it, it's possible. It's possible. Muskie from Deputy Dog.
Yes, I know.
Uh, named after presidents. Wow. Well, does Washington D.C. No, that's not. That's a national capital. That's not a
Right.
state. Uh, Lincoln, Nebraska.
That's one.
That's one. Okay. Uh, bu- 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 bu. I have to go backtracking now. Eisenhower, no. Truman, Roosevelt.
Actually, I will tell you. I'll help you. So you said Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
3 of those states are relatively close. 3 of the states are relatively close to each other. So Nebraska and 2 others.
Well, geez, I'm going to kill myself when I find out what the other 3 were. Uh, John. There's not one that's Johnson. No, there's not.
No.
I haven't. I just can't think off the top of my head what.
All right. So the 3 states. Well,
Well, give me the
Nebraska.
states.
What's that?
Give me the states.
Missouri.
Was it Missouri? Not St. Joseph. No.
No, Jefferson City.
Jefferson City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so you have Nebraska, Missouri, which is relatively close by. Madison, Wisconsin.
James Madison or Dolly, if you
Right.
prefer.
Now you got one more.
Gee, Joe, there's like I have like 45 options here. Uh,
um, okay, so let me see if I can structure this. Uh, the name is also named after the name is also in the name of a neighborhood in Queens.
not Corona.
No, not Corona.
He never was president. Um, no, I'm drawing a blank. 10 years ago, I might have gotten it like that, but
You would pass it on your way if you were on the 7 train. You would
yeah.
pass it on your way to Shea Stadium.
Well, Linden Hill, Main Street,
Jackson Heights,
Jackson Avenue,
Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi. If you had the whole map laid out in front of me, I could go boom, 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 boom.
Well, it's easy for me. I got the
All
questions
I,
and the answers.
all I know is Carson City is the capital of Nevada. Gee, I know a lot of things.
Um, yes. And Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
Oh God. Um, all right, so I guess we can call it a night at this point.
Well,
Does that
phonics.
does that work for you?
Yeah, you want me to tell the quick story about Jerry Stiller?
Yes, go ahead. Because hold
I
on.
actually,
Wait. Just okay. Nothing's exploding. We're not locking up. It's not freezing up. Yes, please. Yeah, tell your story about Jerry Stiller.
I,
Because
I actually found this rummaging through my archives back in the 70s into the 80s. I used to host in cooperation with a famous resort in the Catskills. Maybe some of you have heard about this, the Mohonk Mountain House. And they used to have a number of nature programs. I had suggested doing a program on astronomy and space. They said, "Hey, that'd be a great idea." Just to show you, this is an example. This was one of the brochures. Each year they give out brochures about the program, and this was the brochure from 1977. And just to show you, or prove to you, here I am. I'm listed right here. I was not Joe Rayo in those days. I was Joseph Rayo, with class there. 1978 was I still I just graduated, I think, from college. 77. No, actually 77 I was a junior in college. Anyway, in 1978 we had a speaker with the program, the stargazing program. Dr. Fred Hess would eventually become one of my mentors in astronomy. And he had a big booming voice, deep resonant voice. Everybody who listened to him, you never fell asleep at a Fred Hess lecture. And in fact, you would become enchanted by listening to the way he would provide information. He won the Chancellor's Award. He was a physical science professor at the State College, Fort Schuyler, underneath the Throgs Neck Bridge. So here he's starting to give his talk, and then who walks into the room where he's giving his talk but Jerry Stiller, who just passed away yesterday. This was not unusual because Mohonk was a famous resort. Many celebrities would come from time to time, not to entertain, but to get some rest and relaxation. This is what Jerry Stiller obviously was doing. He'd come up to Mohonk to get a little bit of relaxation. He walked into our session where Dr. Hess was talking. He sat down, and as soon as he sat down, he looked at his wristwatch. And I said to myself, this man probably is going to be here for a few minutes, and he's going to get up and he's going to leave. But he didn't do that because, as I said, Fred was such a tremendous speaker. And in this particular case, he was talking about eclipses of the sun and what magnificent spectacles they are. And I was watching Jerry Stiller, and his eyes were like lit up while he was listening to Dr. Hess talk. When Dr. Hess finished, and everybody gave a big round of applause for his talk, as he always got, people came up to ask him questions. Who came up to ask him a question but Jerry Stiller? And it wasn't even a question. He said to Dr. Hess, if seeing a total eclipse of the sun is half as good as the talk that you just gave to all of us, it must be a hell of a sight to see. I thought that was the greatest thing that anybody, any lecturer, any storyteller, that's what Fred told
Oh,
me.
that's what you want to hear. I mean, that's such a nice thing to say.
I mean, Fred told me that if you never lecture to an audience, you tell a story, and the best storytellers are often the ones that people remember. And I remember that I got started in broadcasting in 1978, and I used that ever since. His suggestion of being a storyteller, and it has worked. It certainly worked for me. But I thought that was the greatest thing that ever was told to somebody, that if the eclipse was half as good as your talk, then the eclipse must be a heck of a sight to see. It was just great, and I got to see that day the Jerry Stiller that most people did not ever get a chance to see. We all know Jerry Stiller either with his wife Ann Mirror, this team of Stiller and Mirror, or as Mr. Costanza on Seinfeld, or on the other sitcoms that came
Also,
after
On King
Seinfeld,
of Queens too.
right? King of Queens, with a short temper. What do you mean? I got to tell you, at least in real life, and for the few moments that I saw him in real life, nothing like that. A nice, polite, soft-spoken, very intelligent man, and God bless him. He lived 92 great years. Everybody who worked with him said basically the same thing, that there was two different Jerry Stillers. There was the one behind the camera,
And the
and then
one.
there was the one who appeared on television with that short temper and that, like serenity now, that kind of thing. That was not Jerry Stiller though. That was anyway. When he passed away, I thought about that event in my life when I met him over 40 years ago. And it also made me think of Dr. Hess, who, again, I was a great admirer of, and he was one of my mentors. So last night, I didn't have a bottle of Blue Nun with me. That was a wine that in the
Yes.
1970s, he and his wife, I think that they did commercials on radio,
On WCBS radio, they always had the
right?
Blue Nun
And it
commercials.
went up like 500%.
Yeah, how about a
People
little
buying
Blue
that up.
Nun? You mean the one with the pedal pushers?
Yeah.
No, no, Blue Nun wine.
Exactly, exactly. So here's to Jerry Stiller, a great life, and we're certainly going to miss him, um, as he has passed on to the great beyond.
Yes, yes, indeed. All right, we'll call it a night. Thanks everybody for being here. Um, Thanks, Mr. Volpe, for hitting super chat tonight. Joe and I really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right here. So be sure you tune in, and we'll see what the where the weather models take us on Wednesday. So, Joe, have a good night. Good night, everybody.